Alright. I am attempting to get warmed up here. Seems like things might be in order. Still getting set up. Testing 1, 2, 3. Let's scream with glee. Normally, seeing a crocodile walk by you is cause for extraordinary concern, but in this game and in discovery mode, it's perfectly okay. Let's see here. I seem to have one visitor. Welcome, welcome, whoever you are. Under normal circumstances, this is cause for extraordinary concern. But this is the discovery mode, so the animals are friendly. I don't think I could pet him or her. Oh boy, look at this. He seems a little bit less than pleased to see them. I think that was something like a prayer. I'm trying to find a different version of this video so that I can see chat. I don't know if anybody's chatting or whatnot. He does seem a bit less than pleased to have crocodiles about. This guy doing sunning himself. Oh. Let's see if I can get a proper link to this. My doggy will be a co-host shortly. I'm still getting warmed up. Right on. It seems like things are in order. So I'm going to open the menu up for the Discovery Tour. We've completed several of these. already. There are some remain still. Interesting. I wish they would say, hey, this is what you haven't done yet. Okay, there we go. Alexandria. It might be a worthwhile one. So anyone that wants to participate, they can have a little vote. We got City of Celebration, Education, the Great Library, the Museum, the Serapion, the Island of Pharos, the Paneon, and the Hippodrome of Alexandria. Any of those tickle your fancies? The Great Library. Okay. Great Library it is. Fast travel, because that's how we do things in ancient Egypt. I'm trying to think what I did. Why I had this character up. I don't know if I was just looking for something pretty to look at, or if I was taking screenshots or something. But it's been a while. I think I will change the character. How do we do that? I think it's with this. Character. Let's play as... Let's go and put Layla Hassan. Kind of have that look. Alright. Here we go. The Library of Alexandria.
Welcome to the Great Library of Alexandria.
An idea, the best idea that Ptolemy's ever came up with, in my opinion.
Near the district of royal palaces and within the Moseon was the most famous library of all antiquity. The Library of Alexandria was built to house all of human knowledge. At its pinnacle, the library was believed to contain over 700,000 parchments.
That is a lot of scrolls. And I'm thinking nobody watching this is hearing impaired like I am. And since I know a fair deal already, I'm probably going to see about turning the subtitles off. And Jean-Claude Gauvin is the master artist that puts some of these concepts together and does so doing a lot of historical research. He's the only person on planet Earth who is currently doing this kind of thing. So I have to tip my hat to this guy for doing just that. I think he's a remarkable person. I'm sure he's well compensated for it, but that doesn't take anything away from him. At least I hope he's well compensated for it. Let's see, sound maybe, or the language? Subtitle. I guess I'll pick off. Well, we'll see if that's off. Sorry for the confusion there. And my little doggy wants to be in the co-host chair, so we're going to see how she behaves. If she gets too crazy, she can go back into the basket. Okay. did a rather magnificent job. Oh, they made these G-rated
Throughout the
statues.
centuries, fires and wars between Christianity and paganism destroyed the library, leaving nothing behind. The loss of the building, and more importantly, its vast collection, is immeasurable. As no descriptions are available, the team's rendition of the Library of Alexandria was inspired by the visuals of the Library of Chalcis at Ephesus.
That's a good question. It's not perfectly written down, but the general assertion was that it was basically it's primarily separated by class, but Alexandria was built by Greeks for Greeks, and the only other people that were really permitted to use library facilities in this level of antiquity might have been some of the Jewish people, touring dignitaries. But usually the library was for the upper crust. The Egyptians kind of had their ghetto, and they were basically permitted to live there. Prosperity for all, culture for all, freedom for all. I need to get an external reader so that I can see this more live. So.
While much of the collection was purchased at the government's expense, the library also obtained books through other means. Any books owned by travelers coming through the city were seized to be copied for the library. The copy would then be returned to the owner, and the original entered into the library's collection.
It was free, but everything had to stay inside the library, so you couldn't really grab a scroll and check it out. You had to basically do your business there and put it back where you got it. And books are so much better than scrolls across the board. And what's funny is that papyrus was such a precious commodity that cost so much. When other libraries started to form, I can't remember which Ptolemy it was. It might have been the fifth. He stopped exporting papyrus because he wanted a monopoly on that. So they started making vellum books. So, necessity being the mother of invention that it is, that's what created books. And my doggie is giving Daddy kisses. A little example of what it would be like, I guess, to try and look through things. But yeah, on the outside of a scroll, there's really, I don't know what they used to say, hey, this is what this scroll has. Because, with a book, you have the bridge of a book.
Alexandria offered unrivaled intellectual and cultural attractions. Eminent scholars from Athens, Rhodes, and other Greek centers traveled to the city to learn and engage with other free thinkers. Both the Moseon and the library were at the center of groundbreaking ideas and creative expression.
Kitty, no.
Το συζύγω της ήρησεν ότι πενθεράν ουδύναμιν εν το οίκο φιλοξενεί.
The great minds of antiquity were usually well versed in many disciplines, which were often associated to specific schools of thought. The Peripatetics, the Stoics, and the Cynics were among the most well-known schools of the time. It is clear that Alexandria lived up to its fundamental role as a city for intellectuals, nurturing many great minds whose impact reverberates through our modern world.
The impact of these early formative years is incalculable. You know, the ripples that we leave are incalculable, but they are present and rather profound, more than many of us think, I believe.
Hypatia of Alexandria was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, astronomer, and inventor. Though born in Greece, she eventually migrated to Alexandria, like many great minds of the time. It is there that she became the head of the Neoplatonist school of Alexandria. From most accounts, she was highly respected by her fellow Alexandrians, both as a teacher and a philosopher. With her death, the age of great ancient scientific discoveries came to an end.
That was horribly tragic. Absolutely horrible. Hypatia, this is 400 years after this period in the game. So this is an anachronism to have a statue of her on there. But she had Christian students. She had a variety she had Jewish students, Greek, Roman, some Arab students. It was a lot more diverse in later years in Alexandria. But when the Romans took on Christianity and made it the state religion and basically banned everything else, and it seemed like every time there was the introduction of monotheism, you get a vast increase in things like huge social decay and
Callimachus was born in Cyrene
civil war.
and educated in Athens. After his studies, he moved to Alexandria to work in the Great Library. A poet and a critic, he strongly rejected the epic format of Homeric poems, and instead fervently supported a shorter, more judiciously formulated style of poetry. His epigrams and elegiac poems were emulated by later poets. His work was extremely popular, second only to Homer's own works.
Now these defacements and the destruction, you could rest assured that it was Christian zealots that did that. Almost a guarantee. When Akhenaten, the great heretic pharaoh, decided to try monotheism, he trashed his nation and sowed extraordinary division among the people. And I think it hurt Egypt badly, although the priests were taking too much power, and it was more of a check against the power of the priests, but it was to the disadvantage of everybody living there. When you had multiple gods and met another culture that had multiple gods, the gods that were similar in behavior and characteristics were often said, oh, well, this god that you worship is this name in our language, so they had that in common. It was something that was more of a, oh, these gods share aspects. They must be the same gods. So there was some camaraderie there. When you have a monotheistic god and you piss and moan about the name of the god or what happens after you die, that usually causes quite a fucking stink.
It was in Alexandria that mathematician Euclid, the father of geometry, wrote the Elements, laying out the foundational work of what would become modern algebra and number theory. Euclidean geometry would become one of the most influential systems in the evolution of mathematics.
And to answer your question about the pottery, people got rather thirsty studying, and there were both, I would say, servants and possibly indentured servants keeping things going. The chances would be pretty good that it would be an Egyptian keeping the water full. And heck, maybe there was an upper crust area where wine would dispense, but I think it would probably mostly Nile water. Sorry for losing my temper. I get kind of more than just a little bit pissed that the library was destroyed for religious reasons. I think humanity was set back considerably by that.
How do you calculate the circumference of the Earth? With a camel, 2 sticks, and shadows cast by the sun. This is what Eratosthenes of Cyrene described in his principal work, Geography, while he was director of the Great Library of Alexandria. He is credited for the invention of the armillary spear around 250 BCE.
You know, we like to think in our modern age that we're so intelligent and we're so much more advanced than people from thousands of years ago because we have, cell phones, smartphones, and computers and striped toothpaste. Eratosthenes of Cyrene, to high precision, he was only off by about 3%, calculated the circumference of the Earth with very few tools, just a lot of footwork and a couple of sticks. I thought that was a remarkable achievement. And a lot of that information was completely lost when the library went up in flames. There was a... How do I say this? We can't know all that was learned at this time, nor how they came to that conclusion when they come up with a scientific theory. There are multiple ways to discover things, and I think more than the facts are lost. It's different approaches to problem solving. Some lecturers taught math in the library, but I don't know how organized the schooling was. Because
the earliest known and most complete armillary sphere of antiquity was the Meteoroscopion of Alexandria, with an imposing 9 rings compared to the 3 or 4 of most other astrolabes. Known as the zodiac krikatoi amongst the Greeks, the Meteoroscopion was used to determine the location of celestial bodies around the Earth. Every self-respecting astronomer of antiquity would have sought to use this tool to better understand the celestial movements.
I don't know exactly how precise this thing was. But I think it's an impressive device. And my doggy's kind of licking my arm and making my movements a little bit jerky.
Pythagoras of Samos was a well-known and respected philosopher and mathematician. He is best known for the Pythagorean theorem. However, there is proof that the theorem existed in Babylonia and India long before Pythagoras was born, casting some doubts as to who exactly originated the theorem.
That's not too different. Somebody takes credit for something somebody else did. But the important thing is to get the information out there because it is useful. And much of the tools that people use were just writing instruments, and in the days of old, a lot of information was obtained by, how do I say this? There was more focus on how to understand and learn things, and not this is what it is. Memorize this. But it also, that kind of thinking couldn't be done by everybody. There were plenty of people that needed to learn a trade and learn how to conduct that trade, and they needed that information. Being a philosopher was something that it was a unique art, and I would say that it was an art more than a skill, just because of the nature of it. But not everyone could do it because people still had to work and live and survive and go about their business. And some of these they made a bit more G-rated by adding seashells where they weren't added before. But fortunately for the viewers who would prefer to see the statues in their original form, at least along the library, they didn't censor that. So that was the Library of Alexandria, which I think is a remarkable representation. There's probably a lot that was similar with the guesswork done, and I think they did a marvelous job with it. It's a very beautiful, majestic building. And but as far as the tools that were used, you're most likely, depending where you were, papyrus, a stylus, and a freaking paintbrush, or something that would serve as an inkwell. I don't know, like the time of Hypatia, like she died like literally over 400 CE. So this, where the game takes place, is 40 to 30 BC, or BCE. So we're looking at another 400 years before popes start making decrees and tearing stuff up. If it's not from Jesus, it's crap. Burn it, break it. There's only one God. So tear up all the temples, deface everything. Cute stuff. I love it. I love it so much it makes me physically ill. All right. Education. If memory serves. So, sorry for taking so long. Let me see, I think it's this one. Education. Education in Alexandria.
Welcome to Education in Alexandria. The education of young Alexandrians did not differ from the one generally dispensed elsewhere in ancient Greece. At the age of 7, the child was taken in charge by a tutor, who then became responsible for instilling an elementary education as well as good moral principles.
I don't mean to be the bearer of negative history, but I'm going to have to inject just for history's sake, not because I agree with this in any way. Please understand that. Take a look at this nice little bowl here. Boys could get an education. They had a clay tablet and a stylus to write with. Unfortunately, girls were not really permitted to receive an education. Some of them did if they were really high in royal society, or maybe had a spouse who was highly educated and taught them a thing or two to make things easier for both of them. But unfortunately, it was not that inclusive. Girls were not really permitted to learn anything in Greece or Rome, really, unless their station was really high. There were women that could learn at a per ankh, which is Egyptian, but not in Greece, not in Ptolemy.
Teaching was generally done outside, in the open air. In the gymnasium, students were taught not only sports, but also topics such as rhetoric, philosophy, music, and poetry, all things deemed essential to one's education at the time. Here, both girls and boys are shown attending a class given by one of the rhetoricians of the era. The team made the choice to show both genders attending class within the context of the game world. Even though it is historically inaccurate, the team felt it was not necessary to prioritize historical sexism over inclusive gameplay.
And I agree with what the developers did. Completely. Completely. I'm glad they did it. And I didn't realize that they added that point in themselves. So I apologize for being the person who basically said it twice. All right. Let's have a look at the menu. Let's see. For Alexander, we got celebration. I think that's what you meant, huh? Derp. All right. City of Celebration. I was wondering what was it I was talking about when they were talking about celebration. Just a sec, I have to check something. Hypatia came. Hypatia came 400 years after the game period. Her statue, or she deserves to be commemorated, but it's an anachronism.
Welcome to Alexandria, City of Celebration.
Dang.
Like most Greek cities, Alexandria offered multiple forms of entertainment. Most were related to cults, religious practices, and the festivities surrounding those practices. Among those festivities, the most important ones were the dynastic celebrations, instituted in honor of the deified Ptolemaic kings and queens. These celebrations could go on for many days and included sacrifices, offerings, processions, and public banquets.
Yeah, Hypatia was flayed to death with abalone shells by radical Christians who thought she was a witch.
Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song. I shudder with your
I
fire.
am in need of a cough
How
drop.
shall I sing of thee,
So I'm going
brightly
to put my little
shining one?
doggy down for a sec
Rocky Delos
and have a
hunter,
gander.
Letos golden sun.
Pretty please.
How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining
I
one?
need to go to the medicine
Rocky Delos
closet.
hunter, Letos golden sun.
Somebody's
Bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre.
saying prayers somewhere.
Give me your song.
I will be right back as soon as I can, but I have a nasty irritation, so I don't want to cough the whole stream.
How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song. I shudder with your fire. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song. I shudder with your fire. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song. I shudder with your fire. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Litos golden sun. Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song.
I apologize for the
shudder with your
interruption.
fire.
Oh man, what a horrible place to be sitting. Sorry about the monotonic
How shall I
prayer.
sing of thee, brightly shining one?
Okay, well,
Rocky Delos
let's
hunter,
move on, shall we?
Litos golden sun.
Okay. Come here, kitty.
Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear
All right.
my oath,
Now you
give
be
me
good.
your song. I
You go back in your
shudder with
basket.
your fire. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter,
And
Litos
yeah, I'm
golden
okay. I just
sun.
had a tickle in my throat that was very uncomfortable, and I'm doing better now that I have a Ricola lozenge to deal.
Παιδες, όδε τρέξομεν. Πίστεν κοινός. 2 ώρες της Βορκοτέρας.
Ο καλός, έφυγε.
This city really is beautiful. I would have loved to have seen it. But what I would love to have seen more is what Memphis, Abydos, or Abydos and Thebes looked like in its heyday.
Games and competitions were organized whenever possible in locations such as the stadium, the hippodrome, and the gymnasium. The residents of Alexandria favored such events where athletes, poets, and musicians from Egypt and other cities of the Greek world competed.
Alexandria, by Greeks for Greeks.
Like all good Greek cities, Alexandria had a theater. The architecture of this structure is Roman in style. This is because the team duplicated a theater from Cyrene. Roman theaters were usually semicircular and built from scratch on a flat area with structures designed to enhance oration. Greek theaters were more oblong in shape, similar to a horseshoe, and favored the slopes of natural hills to support their acoustics.
And it's snowing a bit and the air's kind of dry. I have had plenty of water, but who knows what's going around. At the moment, I'm feeling fine.
At the theater, one could witness the plays of contemporary comic and tragic authors. The play you are witnessing below is Menander's Dyskalos, more commonly known as the Grouch, a late and popular entry in the Greek comedies.
Αυτός εκείνη η Λέξαντα ότι έβρονε σύστημα Άγιο ουκ και βέβαιε χρησιμοποιήσαν τίνα αυτή
Yeah. You made a movie about Hypatia? I have no idea. I would probably be very inclined to see it, so if you can let me know which one it is. I'm guessing it's probably called Hypatia. But I learned about Hypatia first, actually, from Carl Sagan with Cosmos. Something I very highly recommend anyone see. It's a wonderful educational series. The Museion, the Serapeion, the island of Pharos, the Paneon, and the Hippodrome. Which one did you want to see next? And honestly, I would be very keen to see a movie about it. My doggie is being a little extra right now. Yes, she is. Island of Pharos. I think that will encompass the lighthouse.
Welcome to the Islands of Ferris. The Heptastadion was a bridge-like causeway connecting the island of Ferris to mainland Alexandria. Its name is based on the Greek terms of measurement, hepta, meaning 7, and stadion, which is a measure of length of roughly 180 meters.
This is an impressive structure for its time.
Οφθαλμού σου κατέχεις ή τι του οίκου σου.
Since its construction would separate the Grand Port to the east and the Port of Eunostos to the west, it was designed with channels at each end. These openings allowed passage from one port to the other.
This would be an amazing thing to see in its heyday. I mean, you can imagine, what, 2,100 years ago? More than that?
Along with creating separate harbors for the commercial and military shipping, the causeway served as a main aqueduct for the island's inhabitants. Its presence also helped protect the island and its ports from rough wind and sea currents. At the end of antiquity, the Heptastadion disappeared under layers of silt and soil, which formed an important sedimentary deposit.
All things must end in time, good and bad. This is very awe-inspiring and amazing. And the Ptolemies could have been worse. I actually have high regard for Cleopatra for her attempts to salvage the culture and to protect the people of Egypt, and her efforts in learning the language. I thought that was actually a very beautiful thing for her to do, and I think she won the hearts of most of the people, but Rome was simply too strong. And nothing was going to stand in Rome's way, so she was born at the wrong time, I guess. I really did think that the designers of the game did an unbelievable job recreating this. And that is one dude you do not want to be on the bad side of. And I'm sorry for the slow walking, but I think it could give more justice to it and not just run everywhere. The weather here would have been grand.
While the Serapeum was the most celebrated of the temples in Alexandria, many other temples were built within the city. Most of these structures have been completely erased over time, and there is no way to discern how many existed. However, research of ancient papyri offered tantalizing hints as to the possible location of at least some of the temples.
My doggy protesting my moving. Okay. Thanks for the title. Back in my holy roller days, it turned out that a friend of mine that was always, every time they would talk about an obelisk, which I didn't, you know, long story short, he was closet transgender, and he said it was nothing more than a phallus symbol. And I wasn't convinced, but he seemed to be obsessed on that sort of thing. So it wasn't until he was in his mid-50s, actually I think early 60s, that he decided to be himself. And yeah, had to throw his life away for that. My dog is just going crazy. Okay. I've actually turned the detail down a little bit so I can have a high frame rate and make it more suitable for streaming. But it still looks nice, at least on my end.
Both papyri and coins reveal evidence of many temples built for the gods. Poseidon, the god of the sea, likely had an edifice in his honor west of this island, as well as on the mainland. This temple next to you is dedicated to Isis Feria, the divine protector of the lighthouse. This location hosted annual celebrations in the month of April, known as the Sacrum Feria, in connection to the lighthouse. In her incarnation as Isis Fortuna, the goddess carries a rudder and a cornucopia, both symbols of good luck for navigators.
I didn't want to interrupt the narrator here. Well, Cleopatra's Needle is an obelisk. It just happens to be one of them. I don't know how many obelisks there are. They vary in sizes. But, you know, the average obelisk seems to weigh, 300 tons, which is enormous. Well, I don't know about average, but, some of them weigh literally like 300 tons. 600,000 pounds? That's amazing. And I'm switching back and forth, so I will eventually get your commentary or the stuff you say. But I didn't want to interrupt the narrator that was talking. Yeah. There were a lot of obelisks to go around, and the what do you call it? The politicians in Egypt. I don't think there's a rear entrance here, so I think I'm going to have to go back out and
Όταν
around.
της πράξεως εγίνατο, ευχιάριν.
They wanted to schmooze up to the French and the Brits and the Italians. Well, the Romans, I shouldn't say the Italians, the Romans took plenty of obelisks to put in Rome. I think most of the obelisks that exists are in Rome. And it's easy to guess why they would be there. The Romans were kind of like the precursor to the Germans of the 1930s. And my doggy is really obscuring my vision. And wagging her tail, and she's smiling at me. Doggy. Doggy. You need to chill. Daddy's hosting a show. This is an internet spectacular. Okay. Let's make some adjustments here. Okay. And there's the Great Lighthouse, which existed for quite some time before an earthquake took it out.
Considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria was a source of great pride for the inhabitants of the city. Construction began under Ptolemy I's reign and lasted 15 years. It was completed during his son's rule. Once completed, the lighthouse was dedicated to the gods for the salvation of those who sail the sea.
Faria, the divine protector of the sailors. I think that's a very good estimation of what it looked like, to be honest. I think they really put a lot of work into this. It was basically used for building materials after earthquakes. Rendered it basically a pile of rubble.
Built on the island of Pharos, the stone structure was 3 tiers set on top of one another in a step formation. The second floor consisted of an octagonal tower, and the top floor was a cylindrical tower topped by a statue. The interior provided space for staff rooms and a ramp which allowed the transport of fuel to the upper floors.
Εσού ελάβνην ου γιγνοσκόμην γε. Γης βέλτιστος.
I did not finish RDR2. I didn't get that much more into the story. There's more for me to do.
Essential to safe navigation through the rifts and shallow waters, the Pharos was a functioning lighthouse with a beam reportedly visible 50 kilometers away. It's unclear what kind of fuel was used or how much. Any other details of how the light worked remain a mystery.
Ιδιώτη, ελάβνην ου γιγνώστης.
Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. Oh no. Mama Ducky's comments are going through. Let's crummy.
παρατουιδίου. Ισοφθαλμονίδιο κατασχέθηση.
I'm going to try, actually, maybe I can take a bit of a potty break with the doggy and restart the stream, and let's see if other participant can come through. Because my doggy is kind of acting like, hey man, there's some business that needs taken care of. So, what I'll do is take a brief break, and I will restart the stream in a little bit. So, I will BRB soon. I'll leave this up.
Βλάξ, σύ ελάβνη χρύου γυρνέστε.